Excerpts from the Book of Zeal. The Essence. After the second gathering, the peoples of the world continued to eke out their existences in the idyllic world the Vespers created. With all mankind's concerns addressed, the world seemed to be a paradise for the Vespers' creations. However, the Vespers soon discovered a problem so grave, Zeal called for an emergency convening of its kin at the grove.
Vespers, I've sensed the alarm that has arisen within our collective. I've called you here so that we can work together to figure out the solution to the problem. I'll let Shade share some thoughts.
Shade addressed the collective.
You all know by now that we've discovered something disturbing about mankind. Death does not work the same way for them as it does for our other creations. When an animal dies, its body ceases to function, and the mana that kept it alive dissipates and returns to the world. With mankind, their bodies cease to function, but not all the mana within them dissipates. Part of it remains behind, attached to the corpse. Apparently, that mana still contains the consciousness of the deceased. They can still think and feel, but they are trapped, unable to move away from the corpse. Even in cases where a body is burned in observance of a specific cultural exercise, that consciousness remains tied to the ashes.
I can confirm what Shade says is true.
Lucef started.
I've spoken to several of the deceased people. This is a severe matter. They are stuck in a state that appears to be constant agony for them.
The revelation disturbed the Vespers. Mankind was their greatest creation. The last thing they wanted was for the peoples of the world to be subjected to such a grim fate.
I believe I understand the nature of the problem.
Lutef continued, garnering the attention of his fellow Vespers.
With the plants and animals, we only used ambient mana to bring them to life. We introduced a minute amount of our mana to the mix when we created the dragons. We increased the amount of our mana used to bring the elementals to life, but we tied them to the fundamental elements of the world. We infused mankind with a similar amount of our mana as we did with the elementals, but used the same means of giving them physical form as we did with the animals. Does everyone agree that's a fair summation of our work to this point?
The other Vespers nodded in consensus.
We believe that tying the elementals to the world in the way we did is what made them immortal. I think we were only partially correct. I think the amount of our own mana used is also a contributing factor. We just didn't understand that fact because the elementals don't die. Mankind, on the other hand, is like the animals in that they lose the ability to keep their bodies functioning. However, unlike the animals, not all of their mana disperses. The portion that comes from us remains and does not die. That undying component retains their consciousness and memories. I call it the soul.
This soul, as you call it, seems to contain everything they are at their very essence.
Crag noted. Lucef nodded.
It does.
The revelation particularly alarmed Kinder.
That just further emphasizes how miserable the situation is for those that have died. Is there nothing we can do?
Lucef had no answer.
I'm at a loss. If what Lucef is saying is true, and these souls are like us, we can't even destroy them to give the fallen peace.
Shade concluded. The Vespers lamented the situation. They all wanted nothing more than to fix the problem, but none of them had a clue about how that might be done. They were so trapped in their despair that they hadn't realized they weren't alone. Most of the world's beings could not enter Vesper Grove without assistance from the Vespers. The spectres served as one exception.
Excuse me, I was just passing by and I couldn't help hearing your conversation.
The presence of the newcomer startled the Vespers. Even they tended to forget how easily the spectres could come and go. They also didn't fully understand what motivated the spectres to do what they did, or go where they went.
Oh, yes, Well, we weren't expecting any guests, but I suppose your being here is fortuitous. You are a member of mankind, after all. Do you have any suggestions?
Zeal asked. The spectre contemplated in silence for a moment.
I believe there is a simple solution, though I don't think it is one you would have ever discovered on your own.
What are you saying? How can you see something that is beyond us?
Lucef bristled at what it perceived to be presumptuousness on the spectre's part.
You misunderstand me. The answer isn't beyond you. You just can't see it because you exist differently than we do.
What do you mean?
Zeal asked with intrigue.
How do I explain this?
The spectre took its time to think some more.
For us, there are two planes of existence, the physical plane and what we specters call the astral plane. The plants and animals, including the dragons, all exist solely on the physical plane. We members of mankind are different. We exist on the physical plane, but part of us can also exist on the astral plane. We specters can travel between the two planes. The other members of mankind have not learned to do this. I believe they are limited by the physical trappings of their bodies.
Two planes of existence? This is all new to us,
said Urias.
I'm not sure I understand it.
Lufia noted. The spectre nodded.
That makes sense. As best as I can tell, you all exist on both planes simultaneously. I won't pretend to understand how that works. It's a state of being that is beyond us, your creations. Since you are not subject to our limitations, it is hard for you to understand the concepts of which I speak.
All right, assuming you're right, how does this information help us solve the problem at hand?
Lucef inquired.
If I understand it correctly, the souls of fallen people are stuck on the physical plane with a complete lack of agency of any kind. That is terrible. If those souls were moved to the astral plane, things would be different. They would no longer need physical interaction with the world around them. They could experience existence on a higher level, and they would have access to the stimulation they need. Further, as more of them are gathered in the astral plane, they could commune on a level that is impossible on the physical plane, and would not be subject to the loneliness they must be feeling now.
The spectre's insight heartened the Vespers.
That sounds good, but the souls are stuck with the remnants of their physical bodies. How would they get to the astral plane?
Shade asked.
Normally, the other races are limited by the more solid nature of their bodies. They can't move those bodies to the astral plane. As souls, they should be able to make that transition. All they need is a little help, someone to guide them.
Who can do that? As you said, we Vespers can't even perceive the difference in planes.
Zeal noted. The spectre was silent for a moment.
I suppose we could.
The response took aback the Vespers.
You would do that?
Urias asked.
Well, I'd have to speak with the others, but I'm sure many would agree to help. We specters live carefree lives. Something different to break up the monotony would be welcome.
The spectre's response heartened the Vespers, but it did not completely solve the problem at hand.
You do understand that this wouldn't be a temporary arrangement. If you specters take on this responsibility, it's a role you'd have to fulfill forever.
Lucef pointed out. The spectre seemed unbothered.
I doubt that will be a problem.
Well, I have one concern that I do believe is a problem.
Shade started.
We Vespers can sense when people die. We always know when and where to find them. I'm sure the specters do not have that level of awareness. Without it, They cannot find the deceased in a timely manner, at least not without our help.
I'm sure we could grant them that ability. We already altered mankind once when we implanted knowledge of the common language in their beings.
Lucef responded.
I don't know.
Zeal considered Lucef's idea.
Mankind was never meant to have such a high level of awareness. It may prove burdensome. I don't think we can ask all the spectres to bear such a load.
You wouldn't need all the spectres to take on that burden.
The spectre drew all the attention back to itself.
If you gave it to me and also equipped me with the ability to communicate with the other spectres as freely as you do with each other, I could coordinate the efforts to guide the souls.
Are you sure?
Lufia asked.
You'd be taking on a lot. This is the type of thing we, your creators, should be doing.
Lufia is right. We never intended to give such a task to any of you.
Crag agreed.
I don't mind. Members of the other races have all found work and other activities to occupy themselves. This will be my task. I will do it as long as I can, and if you enable me to do so, I will pass it on to another willing participant when I can no longer handle it.
The Vespers considered the spectre's offer. Many had reservations, but they also understood that while they pondered the problem, the souls were in distress. In the end, they decided to accept the spectre's idea. Lucef manipulated the spectre's being so that it could sense and locate the souls. It also made it so that the spectre could communicate with all other spectres in the world, no matter where they were.
I cannot thank you enough for taking on this task.
Zeal started and then paused.
We never asked your name.
We spectres do not take on names in the same way members of other races do.
Shade shook its head.
That won't do. Given the role you are assuming, you need a fitting title. How about Anubis, the soul liberator?
The spectre offered little reaction to receiving the new name.
It sounds pretty lofty, but if you like it, it's fine with me.
After receiving its name, Anubis went to work. It summoned many spectres from all over the world and explained the situation. Once they understood the tasking, the spectres sprang into action without any dissent or resistance. The Vespers observed as the spectres guided the glowing souls up into the sky. All the liberated souls amassed into something that looked like a luminous river flowing through the sky. The Vespers could feel the souls' relief and even a little jubilation as they crossed over into their new existence. Mankind's souls now had an eternal home awaiting in the luminous stream. The Vespers referred to it as the essence of life, or the essence for short. They could see the essence, as could the spectres when they occupied the astral plane. However, it was imperceptible to all other denizens of En-Fadiel. That was just as well. The Vespers did not want the other races of mankind to know what awaited after death. They believed it best to let the living enjoy life as it was while they could. The essence and the peace it offered would await all members of mankind when their physical existences concluded. Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe for more tales from Zeal. Also, look out for Birth of the Forever King, the first novel from the world of Zeal. It's coming soon.